Hi, welcome to another edition of Bringing Hope to Alzheimer's. I'm Ann Fraser, and I am sitting here today with, I'm going to try to say it the right way. Okay, so Chasity Robinson Mwangi.
Correct.
Okay, very good. And Chasity, she runs a company called Mindful Connections. And so welcome to our podcast today.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Such an
you.
honor.
Yes, and you've been in healthcare and working with all types of things with seniors and with dementia and so forth for like 25 years, correct?
Yeah, 25 plus. Then that's going to age me. So.
Yeah. You look good, girl. You
Thank
look good.
you.
And so tell me a little bit more about Mindful Connections and how you got started and why.
Yeah, so how I started with Mindful Connections, because of being in the industry for 25 plus years, working with families and other agencies, I started noticing a common theme. Mm-hmm. There is a huge theme on misconceptions, misinformation, and as I work with families, I realized it wasn't just families, it's other agencies that they're interacting with. Mm-hmm. For example, other healthcare providers, law enforcement, and first responders. Oh. And even sometimes, because of the industry I'm in, I even work with elder law attorneys. And I was finding that what I shared with families would contradict what they were learning from these other agencies. So because of all the misconception and the common themes that I was hearing, I decided, you know what, I have to do something about this. So I started really focusing on what's happening and just being mindful and having this intentionality. When families come to us, we have this great responsibility to make sure they have the right information. Mm-hmm. But what is that great responsibility if the information we're getting we think is the right information, but it may not be? And so from that, I decided to create Mindful Connection. Mm. But because Mindful Connection is in its infancy, we're brand new, I decided that I needed to get a free resource out to start helping families immediately. Sure. And that's how I created Conversations of Dementia.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, I think that some of the greatest things come out of a need. Mm-hmm. And which is kind of the gala, so to speak. Yeah. You know, I mean, I could see that there was a need for information. You saw that there was a need for information. And I think that's so important for families to get the correct information, because we just did a podcast not long ago where we were talking about misinformation and when people are Googling or even just watching TikToks, you know, they're getting so much misinformation. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's wonderful to have people that are able to guide people in the right way, and they do have the correct information. So I love that. So your Conversations with Dementia.
Yeah.
So that's your newsletter.
Yes.
And I was featured in May's newsletter. Thank you for that.
You're so welcome.
You are
Thank you
a wonderful writer.
Thank you.
You really are. We've had other articles written about my journey and so forth, but I want to say that you were very thought-provoking. You really did your research. And I told you this the other day, but I was like, how did she know all of this?
I know. I think you even said, are you living in my brain?
Yeah, are you looking in my brain right now? I don't know. But you really did your research, and that means a lot to me, that you really checked things out. So tell me a little bit more about like why you decided to do a story or talk about my story and what inspires you in that.
Yeah, so Conversations of Dementia is a free resource that I felt like I really needed to put out, and it was important that I put out this free resource. Mm-hmm. But in that resource, I wanted to share commonalities and stories that people were sharing with me. Mm-hmm. I don't like talking with families and you know, sometimes when you hear stories over and over again, I want to be so mindful not to say, oh my gosh, I've heard that a million times. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, your story's not really uncommon because for them, it's brand new. Mm-hmm. They don't know what they're going through. Mm-hmm. And so with Conversations of Dementia, it was important that I tell a story of commonality. Mm-hmm. Then I would break down what's happening, so that kind of covers the misconceptions and the misinformation that is being put out there. And then to give practical tips and resources and solutions to caregivers. It could be a family caregiver, it could be paid caregiver. And then as I kind of go through this journey, I'm very fascinated with the brain, the vulnerabilities of the brain, how lifestyle and environment and food and lack of sleep impact our brain. I wanted to also make sure that I was sharing the latest research on dementia and things going on where families could understand. So when I decided to feature you, I was very, again, intentional, very mindful. I knew your gala was coming up in June, and I wanted to be able to support that. But also I'm just very fascinated by you, your story, your journey, especially with the cognitive impairment diagnoses. Because again, that's kind of my mission, to educate people, let them know that there is hope.
Sure.
We can change the way we think.
Absolutely.
We have to make small changes towards bettering our health and our brain and our life, and it will create this overall impact in the future. So by telling your story, it was very inspirational. And what I wanted to do was show others that, you know, you're very relatable. I often get questions about, what do I do if this happens to me, or how do I prevent this from happening to me? So by sharing your story, it actually showed true hope. It exudes genuine hope. And even from that, I've had even neighbors reach out to me and say, oh my goodness, this story actually provides so much hope. Can I come and meet with you? Can we talk about this?
That's awesome.
Because they are told information that once they receive a diagnosis, they can never go back. Or people are told that this is normal aging. You know, this is not normal aging, but we have to be proactive.
Right.
And so by sharing your story and the shared mission, I think that we're able to really genuinely give people the hope that they're seeking, and let them know that if they just make positive changes, every day, one thing at a time,
that's
it could be done.
Right. That is such a great message, because, and as I have said many times, and you shared in your story, that, you know, when my parents were diagnosed, it was, you know, put them on 2 meds and get the affairs in order, good luck, it goes downhill from here. And knowing what we know today, I think that we could have reversed them. Potentially.
Potentially, of course.
Like I always say, there's not a cure, but you can always make your brain better. And I think that in itself is hopeful, because we didn't always know that.
Right.
And so anyway, I appreciate you doing that story, and I'm glad that people are looking at that and seeing that they can come to you as a resource. That is exactly what we want.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you for allowing me to do that.
Oh my gosh, it was so great. Then let's talk a little bit about, so the podcast that we're doing now, of course, is about brain health and prevention. Share with me some of your thoughts on the major hurdles that you're seeing in individuals and families as it relates to this.
Yeah, I'm seeing quite a few hurdles. Stigma, and with stigma, families aren't opening up, they're not having conversations. So there's a lot of stigma around dementia and mental illness. And so families aren't talking, they don't want anyone to know, therefore they're not seeking the resources that they need. Also, I'm seeing a lot in lifestyle. I spend a lot of time talking with families. I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a doctor, but I'm just very passionate about the information. So I spend a lot of time sharing with families, let's look at your lifestyle. Are we getting adequate sleep? You know, without adequate sleep, it's going to impact our brain function. We're stressed. A lot of us have high stress jobs and positions, and we're trying to do a good job. And with that stress, people don't realize it impacts their cognitive function.
Absolutely.
And then dietary, nutritional aspects, making sure we're getting the good, high-quality foods in our diet and eliminating those that are not making our brains healthy. And then just movement. Like, I'm seeing a lot of hurdles where people think it's just calories in, calories out, but it's actually good calories. What are we putting in our bodies, and making sure we're doing new things and getting our bodies moving to get that blood flow going. So those are a lot of hurdles that I'm kind of seeing. Now, the good news is people like us and in the community that we're in, we're really dedicated to share the information we know to help families make different choices to better their lives. But there's still a lot around those areas that we're not really making a dent, but we sure are trying.
That's right. That's right. Well, just after you posted your newsletter and you reached out and you said you already had one person reach out to you, and I think that, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right?
Yes.
And so if we can just reach one person, and then another, and then another, those people add up, and when people see good things, they talk, and they share good information. And so I think what you're doing is phenomenal, and there are so many hurdles that families are dealing with, and stress alone. I always say stress is the one thing that can cause every disease known to man, including dementia. And it's one of my biggest hurdles that I'm always working on balancing, what all I'm doing. And I have found just having really great people in my life and being able to delegate a little bit has been really what helped save me. Because it's hard to do all the things. And so, but are you seeing in your work that you're doing younger and younger people getting cognitive decline? And talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, and this is so concerning. I think this was kind of the thing that just kind of pushed me into this direction. As I'm working with families, I'm sitting across spouses that are 44, 45 years old that are now faced with a dementia diagnosis, a frontotemporal FTD diagnosis, and it's just unbelievable. And when I started seeing that, everything that I already knew, it actually challenged my brain to say, okay, hold up. What is going on here? This is not right. No one in their 40s should have any cognitive impairment whatsoever. So, yes, I am seeing quite a bit of that now, and it's very alarming. And it's time to wake people up.
Right. Which is what we're doing every day.
Yes.
So, as far as improving brain health, and do you actually, when you're talking with families, are you actually giving them resources in the community? Tell me a little bit about that process.
Yes, I am. So when I'm working with families, they're faced with many challenges, of course. And so some of the common challenges that they share with me is they want to make sure they're making the right choice because they don't want to have to move loved ones around.
Yes.
They don't know the differences a lot of times, so I spend a lot of time kind of helping them navigate the healthcare system. They're told by their physician, your loved one cannot return home, and we recommend skilled nursing, but they don't understand what that means.
Right.
And so by the time I reach them or they reach me, they're telling me, okay, my doctor said I need skilled nursing. And I say, okay, so what skilled need does your loved one have? What's going on that would require that? And as we talk through it, I realize and they realize that they don't know what the heck is going on. So I help kind of guide them through the differences between skilled nursing, assisted living, with like a true assisted living.
Right.
A memory care specific assisted living. And then sometimes they do need a skilled setting, but I can help walk them through that.
Right.
Sometimes they need true memory care, but also helping them understand that a true memory care can be assisted living, can still help their loved one thrive. But a lot of challenges sometimes too, and concerns for families is that sometimes they don't have the resources financially.
Right.
So what do they do in the event that their financial resources become depleted?
Right.
And so that's where I've also taken on a mission that I want to make sure I get them to the right resources, the right places, And if financial resources deplete, where do they go next? And then sometimes they're spouses, so I talk to them about division of assets, because a lot of times families think they have to get divorced in order to divide up their resources. And that's far from the truth.
Right.
So I do have elder law attorneys that I partner with to make sure that I'm getting them to the right places so that they can focus on a division of asset. Or sometimes it's simple. It's getting power of attorneys in order. What do they do next? It may even be other communities that offer memory care. Maybe, I have a wait list at the community that I work, or the company I work for. So if there's a wait list, I will partner with other providers out there to get them to the right place. It's very important to know that one of us cannot help every single person in the city. And unfortunately, this whole cognitive impairment and this brain health, all of this is on the rise. So with the cognitive impairment, I can't possibly help everybody.
Right.
So it's important to know other agencies to partner. A lot of us are also trained in virtual dementia training tour. So with the virtual dementia tour, we can go out and we can educate the community. We can educate first responders. We can educate churches, because even on a spiritual level, a lot of families aren't getting what they need because they can't take their loved ones to churches anymore, or they're staying home, they're missing a lot, or they take them to church and then behavioral expressions kick in, the person has to go. And so what people don't realize also is that just because someone has dementia, they actually still need that spiritual connection.
Absolutely.
So it's important to know who our partners are out there and to be able to connect and share and help educate. And so I think collectively, in the Kansas City area anyway, we're doing an amazing job knowing who those partners are and helping support.
Yeah. That's so important for to have this resource, that all of these people and all of these places that, like you said, I love that you even brought up the spiritual part, because that is huge. Like I've always said, when I cared for my parents, it was just 3 years and it was so isolating. We tried to go out and meet the world every day and go to lunch, but even that sometimes was difficult. So I couldn't imagine trying to go to church and get them dressed up and all the things. That's so important, and I love that you touched on that.
Thank you.
That's important. So what should people do if they are having trouble with their cognition? How do you find them? How do they find you?
Yeah, so usually if they're having trouble themselves, they're not necessarily reaching out to me. And in that regard, I would definitely recommend that they do seek out. Sometimes they might have to go to their primary care initially. Hopefully that primary care physician is well-versed and can get them to the right resources. We also know that mainstream doesn't always have those resources at their fingertips, so that's part of my initiative as well, making sure that I'm educating those organizations in mainstream hospitals so they know as well. But usually it's family members calling, seeking advice for others. And so when that happens, I do ask them, have you seen a physician? What is your diagnosis? What have you been told? And then we can go from there. They may have to get diagnostic testing. They may have to seek out other professionals and get other support help. And so I do ask a lot of questions to make sure I understand their need so that I can help guide them in the right place. But again, that education piece, just even all my partners out there, just letting them know that we have one mission here. Yeah,
absolutely. And all of your people that you use that are resources in Kansas City, the thing that I love is that everybody has that same mission. We all want to see people get better. We want to see them get great care. We want them to live their best life for however long that is. And so I think everyone having that main goal is what we're all about.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about your coaching services and what you offer families versus like a healthcare organization. What's the difference between those things?
Yeah, so in this commonality of goals, we all have one mission, but where my coaching is very important is that I actually help break down the differences. Like I said earlier, families are told they can't go back home because they need skilled nursing. And so my mission is to help them understand what that means and what it doesn't mean sometimes, and then get them into the right place. And then in addition to getting them in the right place, connect them to the right resources, because they're very confused, they're overwhelmed, they don't know where to start, they don't know where to end, and each organization that they're presented in front of and they have conversations with, by the time they get to me, they may have met 10 different places and they have 10 different stories that have been told to them. And so in my coaching with them, I give them the accurate information to the best of my knowledge and try to help them kind of guide through that. I also give them the resources, you know, if finances are an issue and they're worried about depleting. Also, just making sure that they know they're not alone in this, and that they have someone that will guide them through that process and make sure that they get to the finish line, you know, in good standing. And have a good mentality about their journey, because it is a journey.
It is a journey.
And they don't need to be alone on that journey.
Yes. So let's go back. I just want to pick back up on your comment about, you said one of the things you want to do is healthcare professionals helping. I don't think, of course, that there's any healthcare professional that is not trying to help someone with the right resources. But I think that there is a big misunderstanding and lack of information, I want to say, or education maybe in med schools. I don't know where it is. But for instance, I was flying home from having my brain scans from Dallas back to Kansas City. And I was sitting next to an internist, a physician, and we were both telling each other what we were in Dallas for. And so I kind of told him a little bit about my story and why I was doing the brain scans. And as an internist, as a physician, he said, over half the people that come in my office every day have some form, you know, they're complaining about their memory or foggy brain, or it's more than that. And he said, I've never heard this before.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I think that's a travesty, because like we talked about, it's kind of the older school of thought, like it just goes downhill from here and good luck. And how do you feel like you're going to be able to reach, because that's something I would love to do. Again, we're all on the same mission. How are you going to tackle that? How do you feel like you can get in front of more doctors and healthcare professionals?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you said, one bite at a time. It's amazing, because when I had that conversation with you early on, I know that you had your brain scanned by the Amen clinics. I have been so fascinated with Dr. Amen and his wife Tana for over 15 years. And it is something I actually want to do as well. There's family members that I know some of the stuff that's going on with them, some anxiety. I have a brother that was hit by a car when he was 15 years old, and we didn't know this stuff.
Traumatic brain injury.
Traumatic brain, and I don't know what's going on with him right now, but it's interesting because I see a lot of things happening with him, a lot of anxiety, a lot of behaviors, and even though I'm in the industry and I see all of this, I know what it probably is, but how do we get him to the resources and get other families to those resources?
Exactly.
So to answer your question, how do I get in front of people? It's just again, I'm so mindful with every connection. And so every time I make a connection, I'm always listening for that opportunity to connect with someone new.
Yes.
And even KU Dementia Clinic some time ago reached out to me because their patients were saying they had spoken with me at the memory care community where I work. And so they reached out saying, okay, what are you? Where are you? I didn't know you were there. What's going on?
Right.
So they opened that door of conversation.
Awesome.
And then because of all the partners that we work with, I'm very vocal in sharing the mission and sharing the information. And believe it or not, every one of us in the industry, we're connecting each other to who we need to connect with.
Yeah.
And so I think the greater good of our mission will get out based on the genuality, the connections, the mindfulness that goes into everything that we are trying to do to help as a society. Because we need our society to be more informed and to know that there's hope and help out there.
There is.
But how do you get them there?
Right, exactly. Well, maybe you and I can collaborate and figure out how we can do something with doctors there, where we can get in front of more doctors and just, I don't think a lot of people know the resources that are out there.
Yeah.
And, I know that my journey was back in 2010, 11, and 12, but I didn't know where to turn. I went to the Alzheimer's Association, and they were fabulous, but I didn't know all the resources. I went out by myself and looked at 30 different places and ended up caring for them by myself because I didn't feel like any of them fit.
And it's trial and error.
It is. And so...
and some people don't have the luxury of time to do that.
Right, exactly. So I think that that's great to be able to connect people. But yeah, I think really, really everybody sees their doctors and getting in front of doctors and just letting them know the resources that are in Kansas City would be huge.
Even when I talk to my own primary, I walk in with a list of tests that I would like for her to run, and I'm often met with, you don't need that, you're too young, why are you asking for that?
Right.
But we have to be advocates for ourselves, and because I'm in the industry, I do make sure when I'm in front of my own physician, I'm asking, why would you not give me this? Why am I, I'm asking for this.
Right.
It's okay if insurance doesn't pay. Tell me what the cost is.
Right.
But it is important to be able to get that information to the mainstream. Even in my own family, I have physicians and nurses, and for the longest time, I think they thought I was probably crazy with all of the information I throw at them, but now they're actually seeing the benefits of what I've been saying.
Right.
It's amazing when sometimes they'll send me a TikTok video with the information that I had given them 10 years ago.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
And I just start laughing.
Right.
And I say, thank you. It took you 10 years to get on board. But I think, too, in finding those resources, we have to be mindful. I've been following different physicians that are doing a really good job, and I know where I need to get information. But I even reached out to you after doing the interview on Conversations of Dementia.
Yes.
And I said, hey, Ann, I want to get my hormones checked.
Right.
Who do you use?
That's right. Yeah.
And we just have to ask those questions. We have to feel confident in being able, again, the stigma of not talking and not wanting people to know what's going on with you. We have to stop that.
Right.
Because that's how we'll find out the direction that we need to go.
I think that's the scariest part, though, is admitting that maybe you're having trouble. That was for me. We lived in another state at the time, and I went to my doctor and I said, I was scared, but I was like, I think maybe I'm having some trouble. And again, just, great doctor. He said, cow, horse, dog, cat, chicken.
And you had to repeat them.
And I repeated it. And he's like, you're fine.
Oh, boy.
And that was the extent of his analysis of my cognition at the time. And which, again, not dissing him in any way. It's just things are developing, and there's so many more things that you can do now, which I think that even somebody saying it out loud to a doctor is very scary. So,
well, they believe that they went to medical school. They're the doctors. They know everything, and so I think people just get intimidated.
Right.
They don't.
Well, you can't know everything.
No,
and
none of us
so-
can.
No. So anyway, that's something that we'll continue to work on.
Well, I would love to collaborate with you and figure out how to get this education out to more physicians.
We're going to talk, girl.
Okay.
We're going to talk. Do you have anything else that you wanted to say that we missed?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you for helping all of us in the community come together to spread this unified message and good brain health and making our society better so that all of us can thrive, our children, grandchildren. We all just want to be better for each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you. Like I said, wonderful writer. I loved what you did. I love your mission and what you're doing, and you're going to do great things.
Thank you, Ann.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And thank you guys for tuning in today. We appreciate you, and hopefully you learned something today. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time on Bringing Hope to Alzheimer's. Thanks.